Hello and welcome back to another episode on the channel by me, otherwise James. I regret to inform anyone who's not aware, but Charlie Kirk has died. The American right-wing, we'll call him a debater. I think that's fair. He did debate people. And he was quite a controversial figure because he told people truths they didn't like hearing. As a man who's done that their entire life, I can tell you it's not easy. But to be killed for it makes me sick to my stomach. But today I'm going to do a reaction video to Piers Morgan Uncensored, a wake-up call for humanity, brutal train murder sparks race and media debate. I'm sure you've all seen this image here. I've seen it as well. This was made yesterday. This was made 9 hours ago, so I don't know if it's going to involve anything to do with Charlie Kirkby. Right, let's get on with the video.
Just lashed out on her. That's what happened. They lashed out on her.
The death of Irina Zarutska is precisely what happens when cities adopt progressive policies.
We often tell news stories for particular reasons. Black people get killed every day by black people. It usually doesn't make the news.
So when we say that certain stories are being cherry-picked, it's because it's not reflective of the actual data that shows that crime is down.
As if you shouldn't care about the death of a beautiful, innocent 23-year-old girl who fled a literal war zone to be brutally murdered, presumably simply because of her skin color and what she looks like.
But you understand
Correct.
when you call somebody like me far right, you instantly lose all credibility. Even Mark Lamont Hill wouldn't say I'm far right, I hope. Would you, Mark?
No, I'd say you're far wrong most of the time.
That's
I would say the same. But the thing is, right, it's because of this whole far right, far left thing why we're in this situation in the first place. Like, you all don't seem to understand that you can be both left-wing and right-wing. You don't have to just be one or the other. So you can have right-wing views when it comes to immigration, but left-wing views when it comes to the environment. You'd then be a centrist. But you all seem to think you have to pick this side or that side. And so if you're on this side, right, and someone ends up disagreeing with you, you think they must be lefty. And if you're on the left and you think someone disagrees with you, you instantly put them on the right. You all have these very childish, very pathetic coping mechanisms that has been brainwashed into you, that these people are left and these people are right, and the right don't hold left-wing views and the left don't hold right-wing views. But I guarantee you, if you ask some of the left-wing about child sex offenders' punishments and corporal punishments, I guarantee you some of them give you a right-wing answer. And the same if you ask some right-wing people about the environment, certain subjects and topics, they would give you a left-wing answer. You all are not right-wing or left-wing. You need to stop this delusion. It's gonna cause a world war. This whole left versus right thing. What are you playing at? What are you literally playing at? Do you just not understand the consequences of actions? Do you just not understand? This isn't a game you're playing. It's people's lives. It's children's futures. You need to end this whole left-right debate. You're not left or right. You're both. Everyone is both. Those who say they aren't are denying it. They're just in denial. There's nobody in the world who is entirely right-wing. Entirely. There's nobody. Nobody. They'll have a left-wing view on something. And the same for the left-wing. No left-wing person is entirely left-wing. They'll hold right-wing views. I just don't understand how you have all allowed yourselves to be brainwashed into this delusion that everyone is left or right. And you can't be both.
fine. The shocking murder of Ukrainian refugee Irina Zarutska on a train in North Carolina has triggered justified outrage. This justifies suspicion that legacy media was too slow to cover the story to avoid inflaming racial tensions. A level of caution that seldom applies when the roles are reversed. There is justified fury that anyone in America, no matter their race, could face such a heinous attack on a commuter train. There are justified questions about why the killer was free. US President Donald Trump said this.
For far too long, Americans have been forced to put up with Democrat-run cities that set loose savage, bloodthirsty criminals to prey on innocent people, really very, very innocent people. In every place, they control radical left judges, politicians, and activists, and they've adopted a policy of catch and release for thugs and killers. In Charlotte, North Carolina, we saw the results of these policies when a 23-year-old woman who came here from Ukraine met her bloody end on a public train. And here's a picture of it. This is the picture of it. And this is a picture of the woman, a beautiful young girl that never had problems in life, with a magnificent future in this country. And now she's dead.
What President Trump did not mention directly was race, but just about everybody else has. And that is where the question of what is justified becomes a debatable point. Commentators, including CNN's Van Jones, accused popular right-wing influencers of opportunism and race baiting.
Why that man did what he did. We don't know how to deal with people who were hurting in the way this man was hurting. Hurt people hurt people. What happened was horrible. No one mentioned the word race, white, black, or anything except him.
That is so ignorant. That is so ignorant. If the roles were reversed, and this was a train full of white people, and this lady was a black woman, a nice black woman who was doing nothing wrong, right? And then a white man just gets up and stabs her, and all the white people just sat there and watched. You would not be sitting here saying it had nothing to do with race, sir. You would not be. You would be claiming black people are the victim, black people are getting attacked all the time by white people, the white man's always trying to put us down, blah, 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 blah.
Horrible. No one mentioned the word race, white, black, or anything except him.
I just did it. I've just mentioned it. I'm not a racist person. I'm not a racist in the slightest. I've got many black... In fact, my oldest friend is technically black Canadian. Big T. How you doing, mate? So, I'm not racist in the slightest. I mean, I don't hate any race for their race. I don't treat anyone differently because of their race. So, if this was a black individual who was the victim and the rest of the train were white, this man in this suit would be reacting differently because he is a racist. He treats people differently based on their race. I know this for a fine fact. If this was a black woman and they were all black people, white people on the train, and those white people just sat there and watched this woman and did nothing, right? There wouldn't be white people on TV the next day saying, like, what he's saying. Oh, it's not about race. Maybe there would be, but they'd be just as wrong as he is.
It was horrible. No one mentioned the word race, white, black, or anything except him.
Response to Conservatives has been to point out a double standard, citing nationwide fury over cases like Daniel Penny and George Floyd.
So the narrative we hear from the media is exactly what you would expect. They are infinitely more outraged at the alleged racially charged language of conservative pundits than they are at the actual butchery of an innocent woman by a 14-time career felon on public transportation.
It's a vexed and contentious debate.
Kind of says all you need to know. You know when you come up to people with a problem, a serious, serious problem, and then they nitpick about certain details about it. So, there was a 12-year-old girl who was assaulted by an illegal migrant in the UK. And I'm not on about the Epping one. And I was just mentioning on GB News, I mentioned, I hope you report white sex offenders as frequently as you do non-white. And I got attacked for that. I got massively attacked. Just for wanting GB News to report white criminals as much as they do non-white, all the white people attacked me, right? And I don't think it's much to ask that we protect the women and children from all men and all people, not just a specific ethnic group. Personally speaking, I think if you're not going to talk about the white child sex offenders and only ever the non-white ones, you are actually indirectly, not directly, but indirectly defending them and helping them get away with their crimes. And so I consider you a nonce. So would everyone. But you try telling that to GB News. They don't see it that way. They don't see themselves as helping white nonces, but that's what they're doing.
Which is why we're going to have it now. Joining me are the host of Bet News, Mark Lamont Hill, Christopher Rufo, author and senior fellow at the
Is that Gary Neville's son? What the fuck?
Manhattan Institute, Isabel Brown, host of the Daily Wire's all-new Isabel Brown Show, and Dr. Alison Wiltz, the scholar and co-founder of Writers and Editors of Colour. Well, welcome to all of you. Christopher Rufo, it struck me very quickly that there was an extraordinary lack of interest in this story from most of the mainstream media, to the point where I posted on X, why is this not getting more attention? It's one of the most shocking things that I've heard or seen in a long time. This innocent young Ukrainian refugee in America on a train, just being cold-bloodedly murdered on a train. And yet it was getting hardly any attention in mainstream media. First of all, on that point, why do you think there was such a collective lack of interest?
Well, there's the obvious and much discussed racial double standard at places like the New York Times and CNN and the progressive media. But I think there's a deeper reason. And the reason is this. The death of Irina Zarutska is precisely what happens when cities adopt progressive policies. And so this is actually a didactic tale.
I disagree with that. It would depend on the progressive policy you're talking about. Because women's rights is progressive. Women having the equal right to work is progressive. So if you have a problem with progressive policies in society, what are you talking about here? Because obviously, you all seem to have this idea that progression is just allowing black people to live next door to white people. And that's just a load of rubbish. Progression is wherever you progress society in any way to an advanced state. So, women's rights is progression. It's social progression. So are you against women's rights? What? People need to be more specific.
What happens when you have a left-wing government, left-wing decarceral policies, left-wing bail reform, a left-wing magistrate judge who has, by the way, a DEI consultant as she moonlights. And this is what happens. You get people that have 14 convictions, that have diagnosis of paranoid.
You have the head of the U.S. country, the president of the USA, has how many felons has Donald Trump been convicted by? So he has 4 criminal indictments. Okay. Donald Trump has been convicted, as you can see here, on 34 counts of falsifying business records. That's 34 crimes. So the far right leader of the USA, currently their leader, his leader, I'm guessing, has been convicted of 32 felonies.
This is what happens. You get people that have 14 convictions, that have...
He's talking about 14 convictions when the president has 30.
Diagnosis of paranoid schizophrenia.
That's it. Blame the schizophrenics. By the way, I'm a schizophrenic. I'm not a paranoid schizophrenic. I don't believe people are out to get me and things like this. But, you know, a lot of people with schizophrenia are born that way. They can't help it. And it doesn't actually get really bad until they're in their 20s. Specifically 25, once the brain and prefrontal cortex is fully grown and matured, right, is when schizophrenia hits its hardest, okay? Now, these people have a disability. These people are disabled. No different to a person in a wheelchair. Treat them as such.
In this case, this person's own family, DeCarlos Brown's own family, requested that this person be held in a psychiatric facility.
Yeah, my parents did the same to me. But they abused me. And they're trying to hide it and silence it. Now, I'm not being funny. There are dangerous schizophrenics. There are very, very, very dangerous schizophrenics. Very dangerous schizophrenics. The reason they are dangerous is because they listen to the faulty wiring in their brain. So they've got faulty wiring in their brain. The faulty wiring fucks up, and they hear a delusion that's a voice. And they think that voice is either God or a demon or an angel or aliens, or it could even be Donald Trump or the government. It could be the CIA. And so they think they're acting on behalf of someone else sometimes. They don't realize that they are just hearing things. These people don't know. They are literally just hearing things. They have no clue. They believe it's reality. They believe it's another being doing it to them. So, my point is, although yes, there are bad schizophrenics amongst the world, you can't judge us all like this. I'm a schizophrenic. I've never hurt a soul. I've never ever laid a hand on anyone in my entire life, yet I have been violently attacked by everyone I can think of. Mother, father, brother, sister. I mean, my auntie and uncle have never hit me. My grandparents never hit me. But a teacher did once. Friends have. Brother, sister, mother, father. Girlfriends. Friends. But have I ever hit them? No. Yeah, I'm the bad guy because I'm a schizophrenic. Fuck you, cunt. Fuck you, you Gary Neville lookalike bellend.
But progressives have demolished all of the places that would have kept people.
Progressives gave you women's rights. Progression is what stopped children being forced as slave labor.
People safe, and the end is quite simple. You end up with a girl that is stabbed in the neck on a train.
He's such a liar. He's used the truth of a woman being murdered to fucking lie.
This could be prevented, and the reason that it wasn't prevented in this case is simply because of the progressive policies adopted by Charlotte and really blue cities all over the country.
Mark Lamont Hill, before I get your response to that, I want to play, this is an audio emerged today of DeCarlos Brown talking to authorities, and he was asked why he did it.
She's from the Ukraine. She's from Russia. And, you know, they had a war going on against the United States. So I'm just trying to understand, out of all people, why her?
It ain't. I don't have nothing. They just lashed out on her. That's what happened. They lashed out on her. Whoever was working the material, they lashed out on her.
I mean, Mark Lamont Hill, there seems to be...
Lashed out on is nothing to do with schizophrenia. That is nothing to do with schizophrenia. That is a toxic male who can't control his emotions. And that has nothing to do with schizophrenia. If he did that because of schizophrenia, he would have blamed the voices in his head or this or that. He said he lashed out. So he took full responsibility. He blames himself. There was no other thing in play. That had nothing to do with schizophrenia. Nothing to do with schizophrenia. No voice told him to do that. He's just admitted it.
Be little doubt that this was a man suffering from severe mental illness. That much is evident. And
he might have a mental illness, but that doesn't seem to be the reason. The reason seems to be because he can't control his emotions. You can't keep every time someone has a mental health problem being, oh, it's the mental health reason. No. Some of these people are just awful human beings who have no way to control themselves. Like, if I couldn't control myself, I would be in prison. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. But because I can control myself, and I don't lash out at people, I'm not in prison.
Horrific act that he committed of murdering this innocent girl.
I can't believe, they're trying to blame schizophrenia for this.
But the fact that he had been convicted 14 times and was still allowed to just be freely operating on trains in any way he saw fit to then be potentially able to commit this crime, that is a scandal. I mean, you may not agree with Christopher Rufo's characterization of it all being a left-wing problem that's created this, but it is a scandal that somebody like that was out free in that mental condition with that number of convictions, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Chris that this is a scandal. I agree with you that it's a scandal. I also agree that it's an indictment on public policy. I don't think, though, that this is the result of liberal or progressive policies. It's quite the opposite, in fact. Unfortunately, for decades now, we have divested from mental health resources. We shut down mental institutions, mental homes, mental hospitals. We take out resources for drug treatment and rehab, and
It's the same in the UK. It's the same in the UK. We don't treat mental health as serious enough, right? So, if you have a mental health problem in the UK and it gets really, really bad, they'll put you in a hospital psychiatric ward, right? Where there's carers and doctors. And what they'll try and do is just pump you full of medication that sedates you and makes you incapable. So, then they can make you out to be incapable, and that's why you need the medication, right? But anyway, once you get out of the hospital and you're on that medication, okay, that's their job done. They're not there to solve the problems and cure people like the rest of medicine. They're there to hide a problem and mask it and pretend they fixed it. We don't have good mental health treatments in the modern day, apart from like therapy and CBT and these sorts of things. Like, the medical treatment of mental health people is disgusting. Like, in the 80s, in America and in the UK, you were all literally chopping out of people's brains. You were cutting their skulls open, taking out parts of their brains, and calling it medical treatment. Even today, in 2025, in the USA and the UK, people can get strapped to a chair, a hole is drilled in their forehead, and then an electrode is stuck in, and their brain is electrocuted, and it's medical treatment. I've seen this. I've witnessed it. I've seen it happen to a person. I didn't see them getting electrocuted, but one day they didn't have a hole in their head, and the next day they did have a hole in their head here. A massive hole that had been drilled for an electrode. And that's how you lot treat mental health patients. This is how you lot treat us. You lot think chopping up our brains while tying us to the chair is helping us. You lot think electrocuting us, torturing us, while we're strapped to a chair is helping us. Unfortunately, I have to say, I don't think mental health patients are the problem. I think the way society treats us is the problem. Now, there is bad mental health patients who are dangerous, and they need locked up, they need fucking secured. Fine. But because of those individuals, because I've got a mental health problem, you all treat me like I'm one of the dangerous ones.
Criminalize everything. And so if we had invested in housing, if we'd invested in healthcare, etc., we would have the structures and systems necessary to deal with someone so that they don't have to use the subway as a homeless shelter. We could deal with someone whose own family is saying, please give this person some support. If the only thing you have is a hammer, everything...
Yeah, my family never wanted support. They just wanted me put in a cage and the key thrown away. It was completely different. My family's never wanted to help me. It's different. Different. If they ever wanted to help me, they certainly wouldn't have been doing anything they've done over the last 20 years. So trust me, I'm in a similar boat to this guy. Similar boat, except I've never crossed the line of raising my hands to a stranger, or anyone, in fact. I've raised my hands in self-defense once I've been attacked. But apart from that, I've never raised my hands to anyone. And I've never crossed that threshold. And I never intend to either. Because the moment you do, it becomes easier to attack someone else. So why would I do that? But you all would assume because I've got schizophrenia, I'm some dangerous schizo. Because you're stereotyping. You're the equivalent of a racist against schizophrenics.
Thing looks like a nail, and in this
There's a few bad schizos out there, and so all of us are fucking bad.
country, the only thing we have is hardcore right-wing policies that try to criminalize everything. And the reason, finally, that this isn't a story or hasn't been a national story, I don't think it's the racial angle of it as much as I think there are clear winners and losers. You know, when you and I debate, and you and I debate a lot, Piers, about these stories, it's often debatable, an issue is debatable because we're asking, for example, if someone's getting choked out on the subway, is the rider correct to put the chokehold on, or is or should we be sent with the person who's doing harm on the train? If it's George Floyd, we're debating it because we want to know whether or not the police went too far, but they do have the right to use some kind of force, but did they use too?
The police in the UK, I don't know about the USA, the police in the UK are allowed to use reasonable force. So, if someone was deemed to have a deadly weapon like a gun, I'm sorry, but choking them is reasonable. However, in the UK, we don't have guns. So, the only time it would be reasonable to be choking a man and choking them out would be if they had a knife or some sort of explosive, some sort of deadly weapon. Otherwise, realistically, as a police officer, you have no right to be putting your hands on a man's throat and choking him. It's just assault. It's not reasonable. It would be unreasonable. And they would be charged with assault. They would lose their jobs. They could even end up in prison, getting sexually assaulted by some of the prisoners they wrongly or correctly convicted. That's the way it works. That's the way it works.
Too much force. And here, no one debates that the guy was wrong. No one debates that she was an awful, awful victim of an awful circumstance. And I think that's why we don't see more conversation about it, because it's not sexy. It's just an awful, terrible story to feel great sympathy for.
Well, it shouldn't have to be sexy, should it? I mean, I would ask you, Mark, you laugh.
Let's be honest. The truth is not always beautiful. It can be very, very ugly. The truth can be very, very ugly. It's not always beautiful, all right? But regardless, it should be reported. The truth is the truth. Whether you like it or not, it's the truth. And that's better than living a lie. I don't care what any of you say. The only time it's better for someone to live a lie is when you're keeping a child as innocent, so they don't lose that bubble of the world, you know? So you might not necessarily lie to them, but you won't tell them the full truth because they're too young to understand.
Lambasted Charlie Kirk in 2020 online. You said you tweeted nothing about what should happen to the officers who killed George Floyd. White supremacist capitalist logic values property over black people. But I could throw back the same thing at you and say we did a little check and we couldn't find anything that you'd posted about the murder of this Ukrainian woman on a train at the hands of a black man. And the criticism would be that, by not saying anything about this, even as it was raging around on social media, you're making a calculated decision that you don't care very much about this. And the critics of you would say...
I disagree there, Piers. It's not a calculated decision that he doesn't care, because you would have to care in order to calculate it. So your whole premise here is flawed. But it's the only way I can point you out wrong here. But, if someone doesn't care, they don't even care enough to think about the fact that, it'll look bad because I don't care about this. So, yeah, it's not a calculated thing to not care. It's just you don't care, so you don't calculate, if that makes sense. But I understand what Piers is saying. It's just flawed logic.
That is a racial calculation you're making. That when it was George Floyd, and it was a white policeman who was committing a...
It's subconscious. It's not a conscious calculation this man's doing, where he will automatically defend every, innocent black life that the police took. But he wouldn't mention any white people who the police's lives took wrongfully. He's not aware of this. He cares so much about his own people and trying to stop that he doesn't think that it makes him look racist to never mention the white people crimes. Because he doesn't care. So it's not a conscious calculation. He is unconsciously ignorant.
A heinous crime.
And to be honest, we all are. We all are. I make posts all the time on Facebook every day. And no doubt about it, there are some things that I report less than the others or speak about less than the others. There's no doubt about it. I've recently tried to move on from dealing with all my personal trauma with my family and the mistakes the police have made and the mental health services made, the UK government. I've recently tried to move on from talking about my personal problems and dealing with the world's problems, because as I remember from being a kid, but kind of forgot through my injury and learning to walk again, people don't really like it when you talk about yourself, to be honest. They don't really like it. They like people talking about other things and the world and other people, but not about themselves, because it makes you seem self-absorbed and self-convoluted, and, well, that's not the intention. It's just I had so many personal problems from 20 years of abuse and neglect and crimes against me that I just needed to get it all out there and dealt with so I could move on with my life, and I feel I've done that now. The truth is out there. Anyone who wants to find out the truth of what all these people did to me can find out on Facebook. The government tortured me, human experimentation by the NHS, forced medication that never helped me, didn't cure me, didn't help me in any way, and wasted 3 years of my life, and they just put me back on the medication. I begged them not to take me off, and I've been fine ever since. So they wasted 3 years of my life by experimenting on me with a dangerous medication that could have killed me. Forced injections, any one of them could have killed me. So I try not to talk about my personal issues, but you've got to bear in mind, I've been in them psychiatric wards. I've been tortured because they treated me like I was one of these bad men, but I wasn't. I was a good guy, trapped in a system I should have never been in because the police failed in their jobs, essentially.
No pretense about that at all. I said it at the time and believe it now. But when it was that way round, then you were absolutely steaming in on anyone who wouldn't share your view about it and wanted to be publicly very clear about that. But on this, it was like it hadn't happened.
Yeah, I think there's a far more accurate and less interesting answer for that. And the truth is, I didn't hear about the story until recently. And I heard about the story because of the right-wing, vocal right-wing people who were saying, hey, you guys are ignoring this for good reason.
I would like to point out that ignorance is not an excuse. And ignorance has never been an excuse. You know, in a court of law, you can't stand there and say, well, I didn't know robbing the bank was a crime. I didn't know going too fast in my car over the speed limit was a crime. Oh, I didn't know white people got killed as well by black people and their lives mattered. Ignorance, my friend, is not a defence. I'm not trying to criticise you, sir. I am ignorant as well in many ways. I have ignorances towards the suffering black people have every day. But you have ignorance towards the suffering of white people every day. But you'll have the belief white people don't suffer every day because you're also ignorant. But I can accept my ignorances and work on them, try and improve them. And I understand why you would put your people first. I try and put my people first. But this ideology of putting our own kind first all the time, if I'm honest, that's what's got us all into this mess in the first place.
So you guys are ignoring this because of a racial agenda.
But this story was everywhere.
And then we began to talk about it.
Hang on, Mark. This story was everywhere. You're a journalist. You're a journalist. You're all over everything, right?
Yeah.
The idea that you weren't aware of it at all for 3 days. Come on. It's me you're talking to.
All I can do is give you the honest answer. And the honest answer is I didn't actually track the story until I started hearing complaints about the story not being covered. And then I did cover it. But I'm saying on the first day, I didn't know about it. Second day, I didn't know about it. That's the honest answer. But if you also look at my record, and I'm sure you did this because you're a devoted journalist, you know that I've covered many stories of white people who've been harmed by black people. I've covered many white people who've been who faced the death penalty. I've covered white people who were shot by police, unarmed white people who were shot by police.
But my problem here with this, all right. But Mark, my problem with this story, in the way that it's played out, is that it's so easy and so lazy for people to ignore the story in the mainstream media, as they did for several days, completely ignore it, and then only report it through the prism of all these right-wing hate bangers are trying to play the race card with this story, and that's why we're now doing it, which is what they've been doing. That's all.
In case some of you aren't aware, there has been an offer for anyone who makes an artistic mural of the Ukrainian woman who was sadly murdered, will be paid, I think it's... Let's check. Wait there. Here. So, this person is offering £10,000 in grants to paint murals of the face of Lena Zarutska in prominent US locations. And Elon Musk has promised to donate $1 million to it as well. So, well done, Elon, and well done to you, Mr. McCabe. Well done to you both. Poor woman, man. Poor woman. I hate senseless murders of innocent people.
Some headlines in the New York Times. I saw them on some of the CNN and others. And I was like, wow, what, you think that's the only reason? That's any justification for covering this? Is that because right-wing people on social media are saying it's outrageous the media aren't covering it? You can point to that as the story. That's the nose. That's the peg. But it's not, though, is it? The peg should be that a beautiful young Ukrainian woman had her life snuffed out on a train, and the video is one of the worst things I've seen in a very long time. And my journalist, as you put it, my journalist head, after many years working in the media on both sides of the Atlantic, is this is a huge story. Not because right-wing people are saying no one's commenting on it, but because it's a disgusting, heinous crime that's happened on a train in America.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, the sad part, Piers, is that disgusting, awful crimes happen throughout the country, and they all deserve coverage.
Yeah. So, back to black people, I guess. I don't know if some of you understand what a variable is, but a variable is a variation. So the variable here is, yes, although lots of people across America are killed every day by stabbings and gun violence and things, right? Not all of these people are sitting on their train alone, live on camera, with another 6 humans around them of a different ethnicity to them, and get stabbed by one of them, and they all do nothing while she sits there and bleeds out to die. And then the news companies don't mention a damn thing. If that had been a black individual and the train had been full of white individuals and it was a white individual who got up and stabbed her, there would have been riots. Literally, government buildings in America would have been set on fire. But this white woman has the same thing happen in reverse, and the black community is just like, well, people die every day. Oh, people die every day. But if we said that in the situation of George Floyd, for example, when the Black Lives protests were going on, and we were like, well, white people get killed every day. Like, how would you have all felt? How is it the black communities will all riot when an innocent black man is killed, but nobody says anything when a white girl is killed? But all the white people were out defending the black community in the George Floyd protests. So where's the black community defending the white community here? This is the problem. It is racism. I don't think you understand it. The problem is we have a minority of the white community who are racist, and a minority of the black community are racist, but the majority of both the white community and black community are not. And the majority of the black community fully support the fact that black lives matter and wanted to protect black people within their community and their lives, right? But white people, when a white person dies, there's no black people out on the streets defending us. This is the problem. It's a double standard. We are offering up protections for other ethnicities within our communities, and those other ethnicities are not offering up the protections to us. The same as men protect women from dangerous men, but women very rarely protect a man from a dangerous woman. Same thing.
But in newsrooms, as you know, we often pick stories based on what will get ratings, what will draw attention. Or
Why
for some
did
of us who
George
make
Floyd? Why
connections
did the
between
George
news
Floyd? Just
space,
explain
This
to
is
me
getting
broader
enormous.
analysis.
From your perspective, but Mark,
You'd be talking about this all day.
That's the
yeah, but Mark, final point to you
that's the
before
third piece of what I was
final
saying
point
is-
to Mark before I move on to others. But I'm just curious, why when George Floyd was killed and that video came out, was there just this collective mainstream media horror that made this the biggest news story of the year almost instantaneously, and yet here there almost appeared to be the collective opposite response of just almost pretending it hadn't happened. And I don't buy the story that none of them saw it. I saw it. I saw a lot of people talking about it.
I think some
and I
people
was
saw-
like, why is nobody covering this?
Yeah.
This is heinous. So I just think there's a clear double standard there, which I'm really struggling to get my head round.
To be honest, you've also got to accept that you, Pierce, have a double standard as well. Because there's been times where white men and women have died in police custody, in their cells, under their care, and they were assaulted. They didn't die from no reason, right? But there was no... The media companies don't report that, do they? The media and the news don't hammer the police for killing innocent civilians or for committing crimes against people in the UK. So although Pierce might have reported that while he was in America, while he's in the UK, I highly doubt he's reporting when the police commit crimes against British people, and they do it every day. They've committed more crimes against me than anyone else in my life has committed against me. So, you've never reported that, Pierce. You never report the fact that they give disabled people lifelong injuries during mental health detainments, and sometimes it's the police that's made them unwell in the first place.
I don't think that it's a double standard. Again, I think the question is, and that was the third point I was making, is that sometimes when we cover news stories intensely, it's because they become windows into broader debates and issues. In the case of George Floyd, There have been long-standing debates in this country about the extent of police power, about the limitations of police power, about police violence, etc. Also, there's something counterintuitive about police killing somebody who is unarmed. I don't have when a gang member kills another gang member, I don't.
Oh yeah, George Floyd was unarmed, but didn't they think he was armed or something? I'm not saying George Floyd was armed. I don't know if he was or not. I'm pretty sure he wasn't. But I think the police thought he was, which is what the racist element was, I think.
Do a front page story on it. It doesn't lead on my news show. Why? Because one, it happens a great deal and it's awful, but it happens a great deal of time.
How many innocent young women? How many innocent young women are stabbed to death on a train?
Let me finish the sentence. I have no expectation.
Not many. Not many. Probably quite a lot in India, to be honest. There's probably quite a lot of women, young women, get stabbed to death in India on a train. And worse. And I bet you guys have never reported that either. Oh, you care about white people, you care about black people. But you've never mentioned the Indians. Just saying, you know. Aapke se hai? Shukriya. Oh yeah, I speak a bit of Hindi, by the way.
I have no expectation of a gang member protecting and serving me. I do of a...
Oh, Johnny Jana. Dunde Diwana. That's a Hindi love song, by the way.
Police officer. So it becomes a counterintuitive and dramatic story. In this case, I am horrified that this woman was... I think it's awful. And there are many stories about people being killed on trains around the country. The fact that this particular one didn't get told is unfortunate, but I don't think it's because she's white or because the assailant was black. I think, honestly, it's far more cynical than that. I think that people don't care, and often newsrooms pitch to what people care about, and people like sexy stories. They like counter...
I think he's right in that regard. People don't care anymore. We're all bombarded every day with this war's going on, and these people are dying, and these people are being starved to death, this person was murdered, this woman was attacked. Every single day, every hour of every day, we are bombarded with these stories. And so, we've become desensitized to it. You hear about someone getting murdered, and you're just like, oh yeah, another one. Oh yeah, another one. You hear about a woman being attacked, and you're just, oh yeah, another one. You hear about children being murdered, you're just like, oh, that's awful. And yeah, it is awful, but that's like the 10th one this year. We've become all desensitized because of the internet. We see images and videos and stories of things that used to be rare and now is a daily part of our lives multiple times a day. And so you don't actually react to it emotionally the way you should and mentally the way you should. So when someone gets murdered who's an innocent person with who's a father and children, like Charlie Kirk, for example, you should feel sadness. You should be in shock. And you should be ashamed of the world that it could allow such a tragedy to occur to an innocent man, right? But we're so all desensitized to it that we're all just going to move on with our lives by tomorrow. Apart from those who care about him the most, no one will be talking about it after that. But we'll make sure he's never forgotten. Even though a lot of us don't agree with what he said and the things he did and the way he went about things, he had the courage and bravery to say what he believed and stand up for what he believed in a non-violent way. And then he was killed in a violent way. And he didn't deserve that. He was a non-violent man as far as I can tell. So, it's a tragedy. But we are desensitized to this. We have this sort of thing on a daily basis now. And so we as humans aren't emotionally reacting to things the way we are supposed to. We are all slowly but surely becoming psychos.
Intuitive stories, like stories of corrupt power, and this isn't one of those things.
Wow, I mean, it is
Mark,
to me.
and
let me bring in,
and it is cynical.
Let me bring in Isabel Brown here, because, you know, to me, it is a huge story, and the racial component cannot be ignored because we don't know for sure what the motivation was, and he clearly is mentally ill. However, he was reportedly heard saying, I got that white girl after killing her, which, you know, if it was...
Yeah, but who was he saying that to? The voices in his head? Because he already claimed that he just lashed out. But, so who was he saying I got that white girl to? He's obviously telling the voice in his head. See, now there is a schizophrenic element. For fuck's sake, man. Making me look bad.
It was the other way round.
There's no evidence of that.
That was a beautiful young black girl who had been murdered by a white man who'd said, I got that black girl, I think all hell would have broken loose in the mainstream media.
Yeah.
And I say that as someone who's been in the mainstream media
evidence of that.
for a long time, right? So
it's on video.
It's literally on video.
We have
Mark.
no evidence. I mean, I'm astonished, truly, Piers, hearing what I'm hearing today, that it's just not a sexy story. We only cover things that people care about, as if you shouldn't care about the death of a beautiful, innocent 23-year-old girl who fled a literal war zone to come to the United States and live a peaceful, prosperous life, coming home from her work shift to be brutally murdered, presumably simply because of her skin color and what she looks like. And we can say we have no evidence or we don't know what the real motive was in this situation all day long. But the truth is, in an 8-minute video that has now been viewed billions of times on social media, I hope at this point, we hear twice, not once, but twice, I got that white girl, coming out of the mouth of the man who decided to commit this heinous crime. This is something that should be a firestorm for our culture, but it's incredibly telling to me that within moments after George Floyd's death, you saw the Catholic University of America instantly put up a mural of the Virgin Mary cradling George Floyd. You saw an Instagram trend that took over every single leading company, brand, influencer, celebrity's account, spurring millions of people to post a black square. And you saw our society change overnight with the rise of the Black Lives Matter movement. But now you can see literal days go by with CNN having 42,000+ stories of George Floyd on their website and 0 search results for Irina Zarutska within several days after an attack like this happens. And the Wall Street Journal wait to weigh in on this until days later on page 5 of the newspaper, in which their only headline was, "Women's stabbing death becomes MAGA talking point."
Right.
This is the clearest window into how much the media is doing everything they can to pit people against each other. And
100%. 100%. That is the thing here. You're all being pitted against each other. Left versus right, right versus left. And that's why I'm just not playing your silly little game. I'm not dancing to the strings of these puppet masters like you lot. I hold both left-wing views and right-wing views. So I get so sick of it because you all think I'm playing your game. The right wing think I'm left, the left wing think I'm right, and you're all being made to divide each other. And I think it's quite timing. It's quite a timing thing when we're all actually... The right was getting closer to the centre, and the left was getting closer to the centre. And this assassination happens, and it'll divide you all. The left and the right was... The left and the right was joined over the Epstein matter. They wanted the Epstein client list. So the left and the right finally had a matter they could all agree on. It's never really been an issue where, like, the left and the right agreed on something. But when it comes to the Epstein client list, you all agree. And lo and behold, there keeps being assassinations on prominent left and right figures in the USA. The government doesn't want you all to be talking and getting along. They don't want you all to get along. They want to divide you. They don't want you to like each other. They don't want you to talk to each other. They want you to kill each other so that you ignore them and their crimes. I know this sounds stupid, but that's what it is. That's what it is. You're all being pitted against each other, left versus right. And because you all were getting along so well over the Epstein thing, they had to divide you all. And that's what they've done. All this hard work people have been doing for months and months to unite the left and the right in a common cause to better humanity, and it's all going to be undone, and you're all going to forget about the Epstein thing and just focus on division. Because anytime there's a disagreement now, people will bring up Charlie Kirk.
And I, for one, am kind of grateful for how disgustingly they're treating this, because it's a wake-up call for humanity to realize we don't have to live this way. We don't have to expect that this is normal on a train ride home from work in Charlotte, North Carolina.
It shouldn't be normal. It shouldn't be normal in any world, in any society, for a young woman to be travelling home on a train who gets murdered by a male and the other passengers sit and just watch them die. That shouldn't be any normal thing in any world. I don't care if you're in bloody Kenya in Africa, or Azerbaijan near Russia, or if you're in Afghanistan or Syria. That should not be normal. Where was the humanity? Where was the compassion? Where was the empathy? Where were the humans? Where were the humans? These people who didn't help her were not human.
China for a beautiful young girl trying to provide for herself and create a better future. And the expectation that this should be a normal response to this outrage is disgusting to me.
Well, the only thing I took issue with you about, in terms of what you wrote about this, you said for almost 2 minutes, not one person sitting around Irina even called 911 or asked if she was okay. No one jumped up to try and stop the bleeding. No one held her hand and prayed with her in the last moments. We effectively removed our common humanity from society. Shame on us. Now, I've watched this video.
Shame on you all. Shame on you all. You've allowed yourselves to be brainwashed to become a fucking heartless machine by a screen, your phones, your televisions, your computers, your laptops, your tablets. You've all allowed yourselves to be brainwashed and programmed into being heartless machines so that when an innocent woman is dying in front of you, you don't even feel anything enough to help her. You horrible, heartless, inhumane, evil things. How dare any of you on that train even call yourself human? How dare you?
Video, the whole thing is horrific, but I watched the full extended sort of sequence of events. I don't think most of the people, if not any of them, really realised what had happened. You know, it all happens very quickly. She kind of slightly slumps, but you certainly, if you weren't looking directly at what he did, you may have just thought they'd slightly collided as he got up and walked away. So I don't think you can blame automatically the passengers for not being aware of what had happened to her. And it was a black man who first came to her aid, as it turned out. So
good. At least there was one good man.
Again, I don't think there was a...
Him. There's the good man. There's the hero. Good guy. I'd shake your hand, sir. Well done. You're a credit to your community, sir.
Racial component of the lack of assistance that she received.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I totally agree. And I certainly understand the immediate shock because this did unfold so quickly. And it even takes Irina 10 to 15 seconds to really fully understand what has just happened to her. The image that we see of her in a still of this video looking up and feeling completely petrified, trying to work through these emotions. And then we see her accept her fate of, I probably am going to die in the next few seconds. I'm going to die alone, as she puts her head in her hands. I think that's the really telling moment to me about how we respond to situations of tragedy like this. Skin color be damned. It doesn't really matter if you look the same as this young woman or not. 15 seconds is a long time. Think of how much screen time we all have every day watching 8 million 15-second videos in our free time. It's enough time for people to at least glance in her direction, to realize something is wrong here, to yell out help or to call 911. And yet when you watch this series of events unfold on this video, it's so troubling to me that everyone looks out the window, they avert their gaze, they go back to their phone, someone pulls out their phone to record this, thinking it's more important to have clicks or views on social media about a tragedy than to try to help an innocent young woman in the most desperate moments of her life. And then to see everyone get up and leave from their seats and try to leave the train is so telling to me that we can't even connect with someone who might be different from us or who we don't even know her story in her last few moments on earth, to comfort her and provide a sense of community around her last few moments because we're so afraid of something bad happening to ourselves. And we covered that on my show today, that ultimately we can blame 8 million policy prescriptions for why this happened and what needs to happen moving forward. But I hope this is an interesting moment for America to take a long, hard look in the mirror and say, honestly, shame on us, because we know what could have happened on the other end of things if someone did have the courage to stand up and do something. We saw it with Daniel Penny mere months ago, and everyone tried to attack him as this horrible, evil individual for society. But he said, consequences be damned. I might end up in prison, but hopefully my soul will receive an award for this in heaven, and I can honestly hit my pillow at night saying I did what I could to protect my community today, no matter who is being hurt on the hands of evil.
Okay, Dr. Alison Wills, what is your response to the way this story has been covered by the media?
Well, first of all, I would say that I also first heard about it actually from trolls online who made me aware of the story, and they were instantly telling me, "Why didn't you focus on this?" Secondly, I would like to say that the stabbing itself was tragic, and I think that all of us should be sending condolences to her friends and family. I think it's essential to point out that some misinformation has been shared so far. Violent crime is actually down 31% in Washington, D.C., 29% in Baltimore, and 29% also in Charlotte, where this crime took place. So when we say that certain stories are being cherry picked, it's because it's not reflective of the actual data that shows that crime is down. That being said, also, last month, if we're going to talk about selective outrage, there was a Black woman who was unfortunately stabbed by a white man on a public bus in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And none of the people on this stage so far have addressed that last month. So I think if we're going to call out selective outrage, I think that's fine so we can grow and be better. But I think we have to be honest that the Black woman who was stabbed last month, that luckily she survived, she was
That's why it wasn't reported. It's because she survived.
randomly stabbed by a white man.
See what I mean? You all keep doing false equivalencies in this world, in this modern world. I debate English people on migration, and they start comparing our illegal migration to European landlocked countries. Literally, to get from a European landlocked country to another one, you do this. And you're done. That's it. You've committed illegal migration, right? But in the UK, you need to cross like 20 miles of ocean. It's not the same. It's called a false equivalency. And she's just done a false equivalency here. She's tried to compare this Black woman who was wrongfully stabbed by a white guy on a bus in, I think she said Tulsa, right? So, and then she gets the story out, and then at the last moment gives that little detail, she did survive. So it wasn't the same. It's a false equivalency. If she had have died, I would have accepted, what she's saying as her point. But her entire point is undone by that one variable. It's a false equivalency. It's not the same thing. She didn't die. This Ukrainian woman died. So it's a false comparison. It's a false equivalency. Can you all please stop doing false equivalencies and thinking you're clever? Because you're not. You're undermining your own points.
I don't tend to think of this as a racial story. That being said, the investigation needs to play out.
How is it not a racist story when the guy says, I got that white girl, I got that white girl? It's clearly a racist element to the killer, so it's a racist story. The killer had a racist motive. So it's a racist killing of a white person by a black person.
If this is a hate crime, it should be acknowledged as such. That being said, FBI data shows that Black people are actually the group who are most likely victims of hate crimes in this country.
So because black people are the most likely victims of a hate crime in the USA, they couldn't possibly commit a hate crime in the USA. This is part of the problem. I'm sorry, you lady, I don't know who you are. You are part of the problem. You are indirectly defending this man without realizing it.
And they're also the most likely to be wrongfully convicted of
Why would you be
homicide.
saying that? Why would you be saying that now? I mean,
Yeah, like why is she trying to make herself and black people the victim here? We know black people suffer horrendous crimes all the time, and we try to stop it. And now we're finally talking about a white girl who was the victim of a black man, and she wants to talk about black people and how black people are the victims. This is what a lot of women do. No matter what story you tell, no matter what you're talking about, they will make it about themselves and how they are the victim. I'm serious. There's some women out there just have no way to communicate unless they're talking about themselves.
I mean, what relevance does that
Because
have?
I think it's important.
But what relevance
Because
does
it-
that... Oh, hang on. What
Because
relevance...
it's being cherry-picked, right?
But in a way, you're playing a sort of crude form of whataboutery. Because actually, it's got
I'm talking about reality.
all
A
these
black woman
statistics.
with
Yeah, but all
reality
these statistics
stabbed.
you're talking about have nothing to do with her death, right? It's nothing to do
Well,
with
it has to do with people saying that it's unsafe.
I don't
And people
think
are
that's
saying
true.
there's a culture of unsafety. And I'm
Well, that's
trying to
not
provide
that,
some
but that's
facts
not
to
that's
show
not
that
yeah, but that's
people's
not what
feeling is.
that's not what we're debating. I'm not debating about whether the crime statistics or this
So
or
you
this.
want to debate whether or
No,
not
I'm-
people
I'm-
paid attention to the story?
What I'm curious about is why there
Now she's deflecting and diverting from the original points.
was a collective refusal to treat this story with the
But that
same
wasn't
kind of
true.
magnitude that it deserved.
Right, but that
Well,
wasn't
if
true. So I
there's-
guess I can't. All I can do is be honest in my point, and I can show you on Twitter. The moment I found out is when someone responded to an unrelated post. I was talking about selective empathy because that's something that I talk about frequently, and they posted it and said, "Well, I didn't hear you say anything about this." And that's when I started to look.
Have you said
into the
anything about
story.
it now?
So when someone pointed out that she had selective empathy and pointed out the story as to why, she selected that story to research it. So after her selective empathy was pointed out, she selected to use her empathy. God damn it, that's funny. I'm sorry you lot might not find that funny. I'm just a weirdo, but that is fucking hilarious to me.
Now on X.
Not yet, but I'm preparing a story. I wanted to investigate.
But why haven't you
and
said
really
anything? I
learn.
mean, if this, with all due respect, if this was a major story in the national media, as this has become in the last 2 days, and it involved a white man killing a black girl and being caught on tape
She would have said something. Go on, say it, Pierce. She would have said something.
saying, "I got that black girl," I suspect you would have posted about it. And this plays, and by the
That look on her eye says, yeah, probably would have.
way, this works both ways, right? There are people on the other side of this, right, who I would make the same accusation to. Selective interest in stories based on your agenda, your
So what
narrative.
happened about the story last month in August when the black
She didn't die. As you already said, she didn't die. False equivalency. False comparison. Next.
woman got stabbed? Isn't that evidence of your selective empathy on the far right to not have called out that
Well, I'm not-
story?
what do you mean
in the
far-
same-
Pierce is not the far right. He might have right-wing views, but he also holds left-wing views as far as I know. He cares about children's well-being and their health and their education, specifically, obviously, his own children, but he's not entirely right-wing. He does hold some left-wing views. I imagine he's quite fond of animals. Most likely dogs or cats. I imagine he likes dogs. And being compassionate to animals is a left-wing thing, right? So,
same way
I'm
that
not
you're
far-
calling out.
Are you saying I'm
Well,
far
what-
right?
yes, Pierce, you are a far-right nationalist. You are an extreme version of the EDL.
Well, I don't know.
Nobody here
I'm
is
kind of like,
I'm joking, by the way. Pearson Morgan has nothing to do with the EDL, and he is not a far-right nationalist. That was just sarcasm, satire. Like I was joking, okay? Don't sue me, Pierce. Right? Don't fucking sue me, you bellend.
Have you ever watched
okay.
anything I've ever done? Do you know anything about
I
me?
have.
Do you even know who I
have
am?
watched. Yeah, you're.
Do you know who I am? It's Ronnie Pickering. It's Ronnie Pickering. It's oh no, it's the bird lady from Home Alone. Every year he must have to deny that he is the pigeon lady from Home Alone, but we all know it. Look at him. Look at him. We know. We know, Pierce.
Pierce Morgan.
You think
know,
I'm on the
you're
far
British.
right?
I think some things. So I'm a progressive. So let's start there.
Why don't
So
you
to
tell me one far right thing I've ever said?
Well,
Arsenal are going to win the league next.
well, I feel like you fall
One.
into
I'll take
far.
one.
Okay. So I think that your line of questioning.
That's not one thing he said that's far right. Come on, say. Come on, I can't. I can tell you that he's done some questionable things. You know, he's hacked the voicemails of royal members' phones so that he could leak stories to the press and sell them and make money from it, which was he got charged for. So I can say that, right? Or he was involved in that charge and his name was called up as a witness or involved in it. So he's done some very questionable things. So he's a bit of a deceitful man, but he's not like Hitler. He's not like Mussolini or Stalin. He's not really he's not like Andrew Tate. He's like slightly on the right and slightly on the left. It depends what you're talking to him about. I would argue he's more of a centrist than a right-wing or left-wing guy, but he'd tell you he's probably right-wing, not far-right.
Your line of targeting comes from a far right political perspective because it's why you're calling out selective empathy for this, but not the selective empathy last month.
But she didn't die. She's alive. Her kids are gonna see her.
Do you understand when
Correct.
you call somebody like me far right, you instantly lose all credibility? Even Mark Lamont Hill wouldn't say I'm far right, I hope. Would you, Mark?
No, I'd say you're far wrong most of the time.
That's fine. And that's a good joke. But actually,
That's a good joke.
but this is
It's a very good joke, to be fair. Even look at that smile. Look at that smile. That is a brilliant joke, sir. Well done. Well done. Love it.
But in a way, Dr. Allison, here's the problem. It's a bit like when the progressive left say, Trump's the new Hitler. They're all a bunch of Nazis. When you say ridiculous things to try and distract from whatever the particular thing is, you lose all
But is that
credibility.
ridiculous?
You lose all credibility. When your response to me saying,
It is ridiculous, yes, because Trump doesn't hate all the Jews and he's not killing millions of them in concentration camps. He's not invading first world countries like France, trying to take over them and make it part of Germany or the United States, is he? Although Trump's got his problems, his relationship with Epstein, his historic business activity and crimes, his treatment of illegal migrants, and his efforts to clean up the United States. You could argue that you don't like these things, but in no way, shape, or form does that make him a Nazi. He doesn't think that blue-eyed, blonde-haired people are the superior race and everyone else is inferior. Like, a vegan is technically a Nazi because they think they can deem one living thing as higher value than another. So it's okay to kill 1 million mice in a field to plough it and plant some carrots because you're saving a cow. So they deem the 1 million lives of the insects and mice and rats as less of than the life of the cow. That's a Nazi. You think you're the judge of what living thing is worth more than another living thing. And that's like, vegans are technically the Nazis of the diet world. The same people who walk into a McDonald's, buy a plant burger, and think they're helping a cow by paying money to the largest killers of cows on the planet. Oh, but you're helping cows. Okay, you're helping cows. All right, sure.
if it was
So, you also get left-wing Nazis, to be fair. Where they think some people are worth killing for the greater good. So they'll kill like a right-wing figure, even if they're non-violent, just because they're making a difference, and they don't like what they're saying, the truth. That's the problem, a lot of people don't like the truth, and there's no one more hated than someone who tells the truth. And Charlie Kirk was killed for speaking the truth. And you know what? They want you to stop speaking the truth. They want people to stop speaking the truth and be scared. And instead, I reckon we're all going to double down. We're all going to become even more truthful and be even more honest. That's what I think.
the other way round, and you had a white man on tape saying, I got that black girl after literally executing her in cold blood on a train, if literally your response is, well, you're far right, that's why you're saying, that's why you're asking me, it is a distracting tool which makes you lose credibility. You're not answering my question. You're just trying to turn it into, well, the only person who would think that is a far-right lunatic.
Allow me to answer. No, I don't think you're a far-right lunatic at all. I think that there's a certain political ideology that causes you to focus and accuse others of not focusing on this story, when in reality, if we look at just last month in August, there was a similar story where a white man stabbed a black girl. So if we're talking about selective empathy, I provided a perfect example of if that was truly the concern that could have been brought up. And instead of us having an honest discourse about that, if I'm wrong about you being far right, then my apologies. My intention is not to misrepresent you. My intention is to try to understand to the best of my ability.
All right, let me bring in Christopher Rufo.
Let me ask a question for Allison. Allison, you have taught us to look at things through a racial lens. You've taught us not to cherry pick stories that don't reflect underlying statistical and racial disparities. Maybe you can settle this question for us, because under your theory of looking at things through a racial lens, it's relevant in the case of the DeCarlos Brown murder. What demographic group has the highest rate of homicide? And what demographic group in particular has the highest rate of interracial homicide?
So for black people in this country, black people are the most likely to be sentenced.
Answer my question. Which demographic group has the highest homicide rate, and which demographic group has the highest rate of interracial homicide? Simple question.
White and black intraracial crimes are very similar statistically.
Do you know what it is? It's very telling when you ask someone a very simple question and they don't answer it. Like, she's tried to use what's called a pivot here. So instead of answering the question, she's tried to say her point instead. So she's not answering the question. She's just repeating herself over and over again in different ways. She's just pivoting from the question. But if you can't answer a simple, basic question, it means either one, you don't know the answer, and you're too afraid to admit you don't know the answer because you're a coward, or two, you do know the answer, but you're afraid to say it because, yet again, you're a coward.
Among white people,
That's
it's around
not true.
80-something%. Around white people, it's around 90%. Look it up. I invite anyone to look it
Yes,
up.
but I'm not
white on
asking
white
about
crime is very
intraracial. I'm saying
similar
interracial. Which demographic group has the highest rate of homicide and highest rate of interracial homicide?
Let's just check this quickly. Check this quickly. Highest racial rate of homicide in the USA. Black persons. Compared to the homicide victimization rate for white persons, 3.2 per 100,000, the homicide rate was higher for black people, 21.3 per 100,000. So, if we get a calculator out, although most mathematicians wouldn't need one, 21.3 divided by 3.2. So, you are 6.6 times more likely to be murdered in the USA if you are black. You are six times more likely to be a victim of a murder if you are black than if you're white. So you're more likely to be murdered if you're black, but highest rate of committing. Because he didn't say whether you're a victim or a... Highest, which racial group commits the most murders in the USA? I don't know. I can't find the statistic, but I'm gonna guess it's African Americans is what he's inferring.
That's white people. White people are the most likely to commit hate crimes. I said
that's racist.
White people are the group that are most likely to commit hate crimes in this country, according to.
Okay, in your country, maybe, yeah, in your country, maybe.
FBI data. So that's your answer.
That's an answer to a different question.
And I provided you the second answer.
Who commits the most hate crimes?
You know this, and this is precisely
in the
the
USA.
point that Piers has been making. The reason this story is generating attention, and the reason this story is generating attention in particular after 5 years of George Floyd hysteria, is that the
She's right. White people are the highest of crime offenders for hate crimes based on arrests. That's not based on convictions, that's based on arrests. But hate crimes against gay males and gender identity targets are also significant. So gay men are also some of the highest victim rates in the USA. But you don't care about the gay men, do you? Unless they're black, of course. I mean, if they're black, I'm sure she would care. But if it was a gay white male, she wouldn't care. But a gay black male, she'd care.
Simple underlying fact is this. Black men have the highest rate of homicides in the United States by a long shot, and black men have the highest rate of interracial homicides against white people and in particular against white women. This is an ugly statistic. None of us wish it were true. But if we want to talk about disparity...
He wouldn't be able to say it if it wasn't true. Because you'd all sue him.
If we want to talk about looking at things through a racial lens, you have to grapple with this fact. This is not...
But we need to look at the variables behind that fact. So, if he's going to sit here and say, black people commit the most murders in the USA, right, fine, and black people murder other ethnic groups more than any other ethnic group in the USA, and it's a statistical fact, fine. Now, you need to ask that question, why? The reason why is because the CIA and the American government, as you know, for a long time, intentionally imported massive amounts of heroin and crack cocaine into black communities to disrupt them, because, as you know, the American government wanted the white people to succeed historically more than the black people. Maybe not so much these days, 2025, but in the 70s and the 60s and things, in the 50s, they were pumping black communities all up and down the USA with crack, heroin, cocaine, amphetamines, the works. So the black communities, even once slavery was ended, were still being attacked by the US government and made to do poorly. Now, as a result of that, they had higher crime rates, higher victim rates, all this sort of stuff. And as a result of that, there's a generational effect where, because someone's parents committed lots of crimes, they'll probably be more likely to commit crimes. It's not saying they will, but they're more likely to commit crimes. And so if you've got 1 million people who, because the American government was attacking them for decades, had to commit more crimes, their kids will end up committing more crimes. It'll become more normal within that community to commit crimes. I'm sorry, but as much as I understand the statistic that all these black communities have higher rates of crime, it was intentionally created that way. The black people didn't just up and decide one day, oh, but we're just going to commit more crime. Like, that's not happened. This is created. This is the American government has created this situation where black African Americans are forced almost to commit crime more than a white person. Now, it's only now in 2025 where things are completely different. We can look at it this way. But you can't just sit here and say, these stats without understanding the variables behind them. Because if you look at it on the stat alone, without the variables, it seems kind of racist, doesn't it? It seems like, black people are very dangerous and they're far more dangerous than white people. And that is the narrative he's spinning here. Whereas my narrative is, actually, black people are no more dangerous than white people. And in fact, the reason why higher crime rates in the USA happen amongst black communities is because the government intentionally created the scenario where that happened. I'm sorry, but there's more to that stat than he said. And it can't be presented as so easily as that.
Not an outlier. This is, in fact, statistically
Black people are 7 times more likely to be wrongfully convicted of murder. So if you want to talk about statistics, let's talk about the fact that black people are 7
statistic.
times.
Yeah, but
it's another false equivalency. That's correct, Piers. Another false equivalency. And she pulled that same face the last time she did a false equivalency. By the way, anyone in her life, anytime she pulls this face, false equivalency.
With all due respect.
Yes.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
also
hang on.
time
out. Look, Christopher, let me just ask Mark Lamont Hill to respond to Christopher there, because on those 2 points, Mark Lamont Hill, do you dispute what Christopher's saying? US national debt is more than $37 trillion, and these are uncertain times for the global economy. It's enough to make you think, maybe now would be a good time to buy some gold. Whether it's a hedge occasion, they create gold, find peers, make right peers, cream for the optimum, and or visit peers.
The data is clear.
You try to sell me gold bullions, Piers Morgan. I don't want to buy gold off Piers Morgan. I'm sorry, Piers, right? Why would anyone want to buy gold off you? What is this world coming to? That Piers Morgan is selling gold bullions.
The numbers are clear. The question for me, though, isn't that. The question for me is why Chris jumps to the conclusion that that's why it wasn't covered. I actually think the data actually supports a different conclusion. Black people are more likely to be killed and to kill, right, in the country. That's Chris's fundamental.
Yeah, you are 6.6 times more, was it? Oh, I've closed it. 6.6 times more likely to be the victim of a murder if you're black in the USA than if you're white.
Middle point, right? We could get into all the sociological and structural factors for why it's not black pathology, and I'm not saying Chris said this, it's not black pathology, it's not that we're more prone to kill, we're not naturally or biologically evil.
He didn't say any of those things. He simply mentioned two statistics.
I just said that Chris did not say. Piers, here, let me say, I just said I didn't say that Chris is saying that. Chris did not say that. Just listen to me. We don't always have to disagree. We agree on that point. What I'm saying is that news stories and news coverage often does not or do not cover the most prominent victims of a crime or the most prominent purveyors of a crime. We often tell news stories for particular reasons. For example,
it's because they sell stories, and so whatever people will pay money to buy and read, they will sell. It's as simple as that. It's not very complicated. So because the women across the UK are all, you know, a lot of them have never left high school mentally, and so they're all still in this popularity contest of they're the most popular, or these are the most popular, or I need to be popular, and so they read stories about celebrities and the royal family. And so all these news companies every day print loads of stories every day about celebrities and the royal family, knowing full well that women will pay to read it. Right? Every day. And then you'll get women who are sick of hearing it. They're absolutely sick about hearing of celebrities and of the royal family. But of course, these news companies don't care because there's still other women out there who will pay to read that story because they love a bit of gossip. They like hearing about celebrities and they are obsessed with the royal family because that's the way some women are. So these companies will sell and print whatever stories people will buy and pay money for. And unfortunately, the man here is making this point very convolutedly.
Black people get killed every day by black people. It usually doesn't make the news. Why? Because we understand why. There are clear winners and losers. There are clear good guys and bad guys in how we tell the story. I'm not saying it's accurate in terms of how we tell the story. And it doesn't make the headline. Oftentimes, the stories that make the headlines are the ones that are counterintuitive or the ones that force us to examine relations of power. That is why we often, for example, if a police officer gets shot by a citizen, if a gang member shoots a police officer, it doesn't usually make national news and stay on the news for 2 months. Not because we don't care about the police officer dying, but because there are clear good guys and bad guys. There are clear understandings of what should happen, and no one is disputing what the justice outcome should be. When it's the other way around, it gets more complicated, and so we talk about it more on talk shows. That's all I'm saying. It's more complicated than that. And my sister's point a moment ago was an important one, and you focused on the right-wing part and ignored the bigger point she was making.
Because it was a
Earlier in the
ridiculous
show,
comment.
you showed...
Somebody calls
you're
me
not
far
right-wing.
right. They obviously know
Well, some
nothing
people
about
that
me.
I know have referred to you that way. So I'm
Shit.
Talk about it more on talk shows. That's all I'm saying. It's more complicated than that. And my sister's point a moment ago was an important one, and you focused on the right-wing part and ignored the bigger point she was making.
Because it was a
Earlier in the
ridiculous
show,
comment.
you showed...
Somebody calls
you're
me
not
far
right-wing.
right. They obviously know
well, some
nothing
people
about
that
me.
I know have referred to you that way. So
Piers,
Okay.
Piers, you're not all right. Let's
Nobody's called me far right in my entire life.
But they have said that you're the woman from Home Alone. Look. Look at this. Look at him. There's no doubt about it, Pierce. That is you. Look at it. How can he deny that he is the lady from Home Alone? I mean, it's just... Look, there's no doubt about it. Look at it, man. It's him. That is him. He was the lady in Home Alone. There can be no dispute in this, Pierce.
Until now.
I'm sure you've been called...
I am sorry, but this video is going on a little bit longer than I thought. It's an hour-long video. The recording is already at an hour and 25 minutes, and we still have another 20 minutes to go. So I am going to let the video run while I make a cup of tea. I will be very quick, and I will let the video play, so it's not just paused, because that would be stupid. You'd all just stop watching. All right? I need a cup of tea.
Far right
the
before.
first time for
And it's
No, I've
okay.
never been
people
called
make
far
mistakes.
right by anybody
but
ever.
But Piers, even now, you're not allowing me to make the other point, to focus on the other point. You're still focusing on not being far right. We all agree you're not far right. Now let's move to the actual point. Earlier you were saying that if the tables were turned, we would be covering it. And she was pointing out an example of when the tables were turned, and we in fact did not cover it. We as a media group, we as journalists, and even on this show, we don't cover every story.
Okay, but was there, in that case, let me ask Dr. Allison, to be fair, was there a tape which had a clear potential racial motivation to that murder in that other instance?
It
wasn't a murder, she lived.
No, it wasn't filmed.
Okay, so they are qualitatively different in terms.
Yeah, and she didn't die. It's false equivalency.
Of what could be reported. As a former newspaper editor, the moment you have someone on tape saying after they have murdered someone on a train, I got that white girl, there is a clear potential, and I accept the guy was mentally sick, but there is a clear potential racial motivation. And I'm simply saying, and I think I'm saying this from a position of some strength here based on recent history in the way American media cover these stories, had it been the other way round, had it been a form of the George Floyd story, and you had someone on tape in the instance you're talking about saying, I got that black girl, I think it would have been a completely different ballgame in terms of how the media covered it. And so there, to me, is a clear double standard. And that is why I now resent, I'll bring Isabel in here, I really resent the way the mainstream media, having ignored it, are now feeling that the only way they can cover it is to focus on the MAGA influencers, trying to make it a race story, when actually there is a tape there. There is a clear motive apparently there on tape of a racial motivation that may have inspired him. It may not
from
be
a potentially mentally disabled person.
Okay, fine, but I don't think you would have. I don't think. Hang on. I don't think, Alison, with all due respect, I don't know you. For all I know, you might be far right too. But I know, laughable, right? Isn't it? When you call people far right when they're not. I know, absolutely laughable.
Well, I'm sorry if I knew you were not far right, and that would have offended you, I would have never said it. So just keep that in mind as well.
Right. When you go on somebody's show called Piers Morgan Uncensored, it might be a good idea, just an FYI, as journalist to journo, right? If you just do a little bit of basic fact checking about who the host is.
I did, but
yeah, let me tell you some facts about Piers Morgan, right? So he was the pigeon lady in Home Alone. We all know that, yeah. And he also is an Arsenal fan. He supports the football team Arsenal in London. He's a very, very, very passionate Arsenal fan. It's one of the reasons I actually don't mind him too much, because he has a similar passion for his club that I do for mine, Newcastle, which is better than his team, Arsenal. Ha! He won't agree with that, obviously. And he was a Tory, and then he fell out of love with the Tory party because of all the austerity and hammering people. And he was convicted of hacking one of the royal members' phones, voicemails, so that he could steal stories from it and sell it to the newspapers. I think it was Prince Harry, actually. And I think that's why he lost his job, which is why now he runs a show on YouTube called Piers Morgan Uncensored, because he lost his job at the Daily Mail. He could no longer work for major corporations like the BBC or Sky or ITV because of his conviction for hacking. It's not something anything would go near, but he is very good at hosting a show and talking to his guests and talking to a point. He can be a bit of an arse, but so can I. So in that way, we're a bit similar. I don't agree with a lot of things he says, but sometimes he's right. Sometimes he's fucking right.
But we have very different political ideologies. And once again, the way you're approaching this story, it does, to me, seem on the right. If not on the far right, it is not a center.
But you are, in a way, okay, but Alison, in a way, what you're doing right now is exactly what I'm talking about, right?
Yes.
What you're doing is you're trying to frame this whole thing around the prism of I must be far right because I'm trying to make a race element to this story which doesn't exist, and that's because I'm far right. In fact, as
I never said that a race component did not exist.
Okay, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Let me explain before I ask you a question.
Okay?
As I've tried to explain to you multiple times now, and I'll do it one more time, but please listen this time. There is a tape of this person saying, I got that white girl. That suggests to me that there is a potential not definitely,
clip.
but a potential racist motivation to his execution of a beautiful young Ukrainian refugee on a train in America. And I'm sorry, that is a huge story. And if it was the other way
And
round,
I never said,
other way
and
round,
it was the other way
if the
around
other way
last
around,
month.
you wouldn't be racing to make excuses for this
There
killer.
was no
You wouldn't be
coverage.
saying, oh, but
I'm
hang
not
on,
making
hang on, he was
excuses for a
mentally ill.
killer.
I don't think you would, right?
No one has made an excuse.
You have brought
But
up
no one
his
has made an
mental
excuse,
illness.
right?
So,
We all agree on
allow
that.
me to respond very briefly.
Very
and
quickly,
we
then
can move on.
Isabel. Very quickly respond.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so essentially, I never said that there was no racial component. I agreed with you that we do not know that, and the video, the audio, if that is accurate, does point to that. However,
Fair.
what I do in my writing is I focus on stories that are reflective of broader patterns. And the fact of the matter is, even
I
if
just
this is
told
a
you
hate
a broader
crime,
pattern.
black
that this-
people.
Let her speak, mate. Let her finish. What that showed is he knew her point quite well, and he was listening, and he used it to try and hammer down his own point. So he's tried to manipulate. Oh, manipulate. I've never even realised that. And yeah,
People,
reflects-
do not interrupt me.
This
Thank you
reflects
very
a
much.
very
yeah. Please don't interrupt her. Just let her finish. She's not been doing a good job anyway. She's doing herself more harm than good.
Black
significant
people
broader pattern
do not interrupt
that you
me. Black
refuse
people
to
are
address.
the group that
You
are
know.
the most likely to be killed from hate crimes in this country.
Correct. I checked. It's true.
That's a statistic that has not
That's
changed
not
since
true.
Jim Crow.
It is true. I checked. Look. Why is he saying it's not true? I literally just checked it on YouTube and on Google in front of you all.
Killed from hate crimes in this country.
Black people are more likely to be the victims of a hate crime than any other race group in the USA. I literally just, and the most likely people to commit hate crimes are white people, like in the USA, of course.
That's a statistic that has not
That's
changed
not
since
true.
Jim Crow. It is. Look at the FBI. I invite anyone who listens to this to look for
This
yourself.
is
You do not have
precisely
I already did. You were correct with your facts.
to believe
the
me.
problem. You want to
Yes.
maintain the fiction
Look
that
at the
America in
data.
2025 is Jim
Look up
Crow
the data.
America, same as always. When the fact
did
is
not
that
say
that's
that.
not true anywhere.
She's never said that. What? Why are you putting words in her mouth? Just because her point defeated yours, it doesn't mean you should start over-speaking her, interrupting her, and then saying she's wrong on a fact when she was clearly right. I've checked it. Black people are the biggest victims of hate crimes in the USA, and white people commit the hate crimes more than anyone else in the USA. And now you've just changed her words and said she said something she didn't. It's called a false impersonation. I wish you younger people would stop falsely impersonating other people. If you have to put words into other people's mouths that they didn't say, you just make yourself look weak and like an idiot. She's literally never said that. We've just watched it.
Charlotte has a black mayor. It has a black police chief. It has
29%
aggressive
down
DEI
crime.
policies.
Great
It has
job.
a black judge in this case who let this person,
Yeah.
DeCarlos Brown, go. You cannot blame white people
He's
for this
being-
situation. You
he
cannot
has
blame
been-
systemic racism.
He is
You cannot
being
blame
charged with
obscure
first-degree
statistical
murder. That is not letting
misrepresentations.
him go.
This is a
So
story
this
that
is-
matters.
this is
a story that has
statistical
a
reality.
significant
I
And so
disagree.
did the
basis.
black
All right,
woman
hang
who
on,
got
hang on.
stabbed
Everyone's
last
talking.
month.
When you all talk, no one can hear
I
any of you. I
disagree,
want to bring
Chris.
Isabel in.
A
Not...
black woman
Hang
was
on,
stabbed
please,
last month.
Alison.
And she lived. It's a false equivalency. She lived. I'm very sorry about this black woman being stabbed by this horrible white guy who's hopefully will be in prison by now. Right? I am very sorry about that. But she didn't die. She's still alive. So there's a big difference here. That's like the kid who fell over and scraped their knee, and the kid who fell over, banged their head and died. Oh, well, both kids fell over. Well, both kids fell over. You never mentioned Jack who scraped his knee last week. That's the same shit. And that is how you do an analogy.
All due respect,
Amateurs.
if everyone talks, we can't hear a word. So, Isabel, to you.
We're rushing to provide whatever explanation we possibly can to excuse the actions of this depraved young man. And we can say he struggled with mental illness, and that certainly is a conversation our society.
It's no excuse for hurting another person. I've been insane. I've had mental health problems. I've been mentally unwell. I've been in psychiatric wards, and yet I've never hurt anyone. So it's not an excuse, is it? It's not an excuse. These people were already people who would hurt someone, and they've also got a mental health problem. So they claim it's caused the mental health problem why they hurt someone, but no, they would have hurt someone even without a mental health problem. I'm sorry, as someone with a mental health problem, you lot in the world need to stop allowing people to use their mental health as an excuse. It's not. It's an understanding, and it's a reason for behaviour, but it's not an excuse for it. So I correct people from OCD, because it's not because I want to be right and think I'm right all the time, which people think it is. It's that it's a self-defense mechanism from having twin siblings who used to lie about me all the time and say things I said I didn't, or change my words so that I'd get in trouble, right? So it's literally a defense mechanism to correct people, okay? And so I correct people. But I shouldn't go around correcting people. It's not an excuse for just correcting people every time. So I try my best not to correct people unless it's necessary. I can't just go around correcting everyone at every single turn and be like, well, I've got OCD, can't help it. That's your fault, you shouldn't have been wrong. Like, it's the person who suffers from the mental health problems responsibility to deal with its problems and try not affect other people. So if this man does have a mental problem, and obviously he does because he stabbed an innocent woman, that's not an excuse. He was already the sort of man who was going to do that, even without a mental health problem.
Society needs to be having. But to say, oh, no one's letting him out of prison. He was let out of prison 14 separate times, including after serving a 5-year sentence for armed robbery, where he went out of his way to prove to society he was willing to kill someone.
Armed robbery is basically the biggest red flag of of someone on their path to murder. Like, because they're willing to kill someone for some small amounts of money. That's why they've taken a weapon for the robbery. So, they're basically on the first step towards being a killer, a murderer. As soon as you make that decision that you're going to go somewhere armed to rob, you are basically on the first steps to becoming a murderer who would kill an innocent person because, you've got a small dick and need cocaine or something, or, you got your heart broke because some girl left you for a man who was smaller than you and you couldn't handle it, so you started taking heroin and drinking loads of some shit, I seen something the other day. Some guy was devastated because he was like a 200 kilogram bodybuilder or some shit, right? Ripped as hell, muscly as hell, and his wife left him for a scrawny guy who couldn't even bench like 150 and he couldn't understand it. And it's because he focused more on his muscles and trying to think he looked good than living his life with his wife and spending time with her. This is what some of you gym guys do. You think it's all about how you look and how your muscles look, and I'm sorry, but women aren't just attracted to muscles. There's much more to their attractions than muscles. There's no point having a big muscly man if he has no emotions, if he has no integrity, if he can't even please her in the bedroom. What use are you from having balloons? You're basically just a pumped up balloon. Makes me laugh.
One in the process of committing a crime, and
so we need
decided
more healthcare resources.
Keep this person off the
No,
streets.
we need to build more prisons.
No,
I live in Louisiana, the mass incarceration capital of the world.
They were focused on the
Let
process.
Isabel finish her point. Let Isabel finish her point. Please speak.
There are a lot of men out there who never let women finish their points. I'm sorry, men. I know some women talk shite, and they need to be told to shut the fuck up. But when a woman is talking sense and making her point, don't interrupt her. Just let her finish, and then correct her, right? Stop it. No, it's not all men, and it's happened twice now in the last.
Otherwise we can't hear.
A woman has just as much right to speak as you three men, right? So, stop interrupting them. They've let you speak, and then when you stop speaking, they speak. Or when you take a breath and there's a gap, they'll speak. Whereas you, sir, with your dodgy fucking porno tash, right? You've interrupted both of these females before they finish speaking. Stop it.
Isabel.
Allison, you say we're focusing on these broad societal patterns and the big cultural topics that purvey every single instance in the umbrella here. Let's just look at the last few weeks of how the media has treated the subjects that they don't want to talk about. When an evil individual who potentially was struggling with mental health problems, I believe he was, decided to shoot up a...
You have to be to kill an innocent person, really. Unless you're a psycho who should have been in a psych ward anyway, you'd have to have mental health problems to stab an innocent member of the public. He didn't rob her, did he? He wasn't taking her phone to go sell for something. He was just a mindless, evil thing. So, yeah, serious mental health problems. But
a Catholic elementary school with notes all over his journal detailing the evil behind all of this.
oh, a Catholic did this. Ooh. This just got a bit more interesting.
And within hours, the mainstream media went out of their way to say, oh, well, we shouldn't feel really that bad because prayers don't work. Prayers don't work. Prayers don't work. The only thing that works is pushing a left-wing agenda. This, to me, is indicative of the exact same behavior where we conveniently ignore
Well, actually, it was actually worse. You know what?
Prayers alone
It was
can't
actually...
solve
Hang
societal
on,
problems.
Alison.
Pierce is allowed to interrupt them because he's the host. So, although I kicked off with the other guy for doing it, I can't kick off with Pierce because he's the host. He controls the show. He's allowed to interrupt them, right? He can interrupt anyone he wants. It's his show. So, there is a slight... It's not a double standard, although some of you might think it is. Like, that's his job. It's different.
About to make a point. It was actually worse than that because what mainstream media did there, in the guise of NBC, I think it was, they issued a public apology for misgendering the trans murderer who was dead. We apologise for not using the right pronouns.
Oh no! We might offend the feelings of a dead trans person by accurately identifying their birth of gender, you know, as it happens in an autopsy and fucking thing or whatever.
Piss off. Seriously.
Exactly.
See, I agree with Pierce on this, right? I am sorry, trans people. I am really sorry. You don't want to hear this, but you are the one who is incorrectly gendering yourself. You are the one who cannot truly accept your true self, and we accept your true self and your gender, and it's you who doesn't, I'm afraid. And I'm sorry that you feel that way, but just because you were born a man and feel you're a woman doesn't mean I have to believe or treat you as a woman. You can't force your beliefs on me because you're still a man, and there's nothing you can do that's going to change that. Maybe in 1,000 years, we'll have good enough medical technology and science where you'll be able to change every chromosome in a human's DNA so that they can become a woman and they could give birth and even change back to a man if they wanted, problem-free. That's fine. But unless you as a man can change into a woman, give birth, and then go back to being a man, no. You cannot transition. It's all just pretend. It's make-believe. I view it no differently to a child in a bedroom playing with their action figures. I'm sorry, you won't want to hear that, but that is what I believe. I don't mind trans people. You know, if you want to live your life, work hard, be trans, do whatever you want. I don't care. It doesn't bother me. But what does bother me is when you try to force your beliefs on me and my child. No. It's not happening. It is not happening. Right? You don't get to push your delusions on my family and me. The same as Christians and Muslims don't get to push their religion on my child. You transgender people don't get to push your beliefs on my child. It's not fact. You're still a man in a dress. You're not a woman. So once it becomes fact that you are actually a woman and can give birth, because transgender is a real thing, it's not just in someone's mind, it's not just fantasy, then fine, I can accept it. But I deal with facts and truth, and to accept a lie as truth would go against everything I am and everything I believe in and everything I have ever stood for, and I cannot do it. And that does not make me a bad person to refuse to be a liar. I'm sorry, it doesn't. And to call a man a woman who isn't a woman is a lie, because I'm saying something that isn't true, that I know isn't true. So I'm not going to call a transgender person who isn't a woman, who was born a woman. I'm not going to do it. It's against my religion. It's against my beliefs. You cannot force it on me. The same as I can't force my beliefs on you transgender people. And I won't. You're free to believe in transgender ideology all you want. But you are not free to force it on me.
I mean, what is the mainstream media
What-
doing
why?
when they
What's wrong
think
with
the
that?
most
And you wonder
important
why I
thing,
call you far
the
right.
most important thing in the world is to issue a public apology to a dead mass shooter for misgendering them? It is preposterous.
It is, and it's
Nah,
exactly
that's a-
the problem
that's a-
that
And
we're
by the way,
seeing.
Mark
that's
Lamont
not-
Hill, if you think that's progressive, you need to get out more and ask average Americans whether they think that's progress.
Piers.
When you have a mainstream
Misgendering
network
someone is
How
on the
about
left or the right.
apologizing for misgendering a mass shooter.
Piers.
Well, to finish this point, look,
Piers,
the problem is this is.
Well, hang on, let
This
Mark,
is
let Mark respond.
large-scale
Let Mark
societal
defend the apology for the misgendering.
No. Piers, you've set up an entire debate that I haven't said a word, and you've already just disagreed with me, argued me down, and now you're wedging more space so I can defend a position that I never took. Isabel talking, then
He's fair. I like this guy. He's funny.
I'll tell you what I actually think.
Mark,
I was gonna
which,
say two things.
which sex
One,
was the
I'm
shooter
impo-
in Minneapolis? Was the shooter in Minneapolis a man or a woman?
Which
It was a
is
trans
Minneapolis? I'm sorry.
person, correct?
Which
The shooter at Annunciation Catholic
Are we talking
Church, the recent shooting in Minneapolis, was it a man or a woman?
Oh,
For both of you. Allison
I'm
and
not- I
Mark,
don't-
was it a man or a woman?
I don't remember.
I'd have to look it up to the story
I'm not
because I don't know
ducking
if
the
it was a
question.
trans man or
I think it was a trans woman, someone who was born a man, who pretends to be a woman. So that would mean they were a man.
trans.
I genuinely don't know. I
People
genuinely-
that are theoretically involved in the news, you guys certainly have your head in the sand on every major story of the last month.
I think that
You guys
everyone should be
are either
called the gender that
pretending
they
or just
represent
completely
as. I don't
negligent.
understand why
Unbelievable.
is that? Why is that important?
Yeah,
Why is that?
so-
I'll tell you
being
exactly
put
why
at
it's
the
important.
top?
I'd like to respond to that.
Societal
I would like to hear why
I'd like
Mark
to respond
Lamont
to
Hill
that.
jumped in when I was berating NBC for that ludicrous
Okay.
apology. Why did you jump in there?
I wasn't. Well,
Hang on, let Mark Lamont
first-
Hill
first-
explain why he jumped in.
Okay.
If we want to be
Hang on,
serious,
Isabel.
First-
Let Mark
fir-
Lamont
first-
Hill respond.
First, Chris, you may not know this, but I took a vacation for the last 3 weeks or so from my show and from doing most news shows because my child was hospitalized and because my mother was sick. And so, no, I actually have not been following the news very much. I actually agreed to come on this show, and I read in on this story specifically to do the show. So, no, I haven't been. I'm not feigning ignorance. I'm saying I don't understand.
I'm sorry to hear.
I'm sure we disagree on the trans issue. I'm sure we disagree on the trans issue. I'm not ducking your question. I genuinely just wanted to give you an informed answer.
Well, fine. Well, listen,
I
we
understand
Is a
that
trans
we're
woman
making
a
distinction.
woman or is a trans woman a man?
A trans woman
Right, and that's all I'm
is
saying. I'm happy
considered
to-
a woman. They're a trans
that's what
woman. They're a
that's-
type of woman.
Do some women have
How is a trans woman a woman? They can't have a child. They can't produce a child. They were born with a penis. They had to get their penis chopped off to pretend to be a woman. Why do I have to... I'm sorry, but trans women are not women. The same as a black-faced man who's white is not black.
penises?
Oh my God.
A trans woman may, but see, and you wonder why y'all said no far right people were on the show, and y'all are
Nothing
trying to
far
gaslight
right
me and make me
about
think
that.
You
I'm
sound like
wrong.
you're far
Because-
out on some
well,
psychedelics
hold on,
because
can you listen or can you
Chris, I'm
only
happy to
talk
answer.
over
is
me?
quite cool.
He's trying to just copy this black man's very clever joke from earlier in the show, where Pierce says, "Do you think I'm far right?" and he says, "I think you're far wrong." So now he says he's just trying to replicate that same joke because he's seen the positive reaction, and so he's trying to replicate it in his own way, thinking he's clever. Let's watch that again.
Like you're far
Because
out on some
on the show, and y'all are
Nothing
trying to
far
gaslight
right
me and make me
about
think
that.
You
I'm
sound
wrong.
like you're far
Because
out on some
See?
a trans woman may, but see, and you wonder why y'all said no far right people were on the show. And
See, he's just realised his joke here after she said far right, and now he's going to lay it in.
y'all are trying to gaslight me and make me think
You
I'm
sound
wrong.
like you're far
Because-
out on some
well,
psychedelics
hold on,
because
can you
And then he looked to his right after he delivered it, which means he looked to the men on the stream. He looked at Pierce and this black gentleman. I'm sorry, I don't know your name, sir. after he delivered the joke. So he did that for social and public approval. He didn't do it because, you know, any other reason. See, watch here.
Y'all are trying to get.
He looks right after he says it. I'll have to make it bigger so you can see. Wait there. Look. Watch.
That's like me and make me think.
You sound like you're far out on some
Here we go.
psychedelics.
See there, he looked just to the right because he was looking to see what Pierce's reaction and this other man was, because they are older gentlemen than him, and we do have animal brains underneath our human ones, and so he was trying to appeal to the elders, sort of thing, trying to gain their approval, if you will, and you know, judging their reactions. So he didn't do that for his own benefit. He did that for other people. But you see, sir, I'm not being funny, but like, why did you do that?
Can you listen or can you
Chris, I'm happy to answer.
Don't copy the black sir. Just be your own guy. Don't try and copy him. You're never going to be this guy. He's clearly funny in his own way. You're never going to be that. Don't try and copy him.
One sentence?
Hang on. I'd like to take Mark Lamont Hill back to the moment he interrupted me when I was berating NBC for publicly apologizing for misgendering a mass shooter. So you jumped in there, but I wasn't sure why.
Right. Yeah, I was jumping in to respond to a different point, but to answer your question, I do disagree with you slightly in that they weren't. You said they were apologizing to a mass shooter, and I was simply saying they weren't apologizing to a mass shooter.
They were.
They were apologizing to the public.
Wait, I thought you didn't know anything about this story, Mark. It seems like now you know all about it.
That's a fair point, like, isn't it?
Chris, allow me to finish. Okay, you know what? You're right. I would assume that NBC is not saying, hey, Mr. Mass Shooter, I'm sorry for misgendering you. I was going on what the information Piers just provided, which suggested that they apologized for misgendering the shooter.
Why would a mainstream...
Please allow...
No, I'm going to ask you a question. Why would a
Now they're not letting the black man finish.
No, Alison, I didn't ask you. I'm asking Mark, why would a mainstream media company in America today issue a public apology for misgendering a mass shooter? Explain to me.
Firstly, they didn't misgender them.
Okay, so I feel like I've heard your question. I'd like you to allow me to respond just
I'd love you
10
to
seconds
answer
without
it.
interruption. My answer to you is, again, based on the information you provided, because, again, I didn't see the announcement. I'm only basing on the information that you just provided me. So, again, so I understand, but Chris was saying, I gotcha. You said you didn't know, and now you know. And I'm saying, I still don't know.
He did.
Only basing it on the information that you provided
Explain to me why.
So to answer, no, I'm trying.
Keeps interrupting him. Pierce knows exactly what he's doing here. He knows exactly what he's doing. And the female here, with the blonde hair, she knows exactly what he's doing. He's intentionally getting a reaction out of him for content.
I am trying to. You don't have to back. You don't have to press me. I'm
See? He knows exactly what he's fucking doing, you wanker. Absolute wanker. Stop making him annoyed.
Answering it. I'm happy to answer it. Sir, for someone who spent 10 minutes arguing why you weren't far right to a straw man, you can certainly allow me 10 seconds to breathe. What I'm saying
Just
to you
answer the question.
As a news outlet, you have a responsibility to your audience. If you misgender the person you're talking about in the story, whether it's the good guy, the bad guy, the good person, the bad person, the correction and the apology is given for the audience's benefit, not for the assailant's benefit.
Do you know why the Democrats? Do you know why? Hang on. Don't all start shouting. You know what, Mark?
I wasn't done responding.
Do you know why the reason the Democrats?
I have not completed my answer. You have not heard my answer yet.
I would like you to allow me to finish
the answer. So, okay, one way to do it is to not talk while I'm answering.
This is why people don't like you, Pierce. Because you intentionally antagonize people, and then if someone accused you of it, you would deny it to antagonize them. Because you're a dick.
I thought you just answered it.
But just let me finish. And I'm telling you I haven't. Please allow me to finish.
Okay.
Every news outlet issues corrections. in any news story that has been given in my 20 years in news, and I'm sure in your 74 years in news, you know very well that if anybody is misgendered, even if they're not trans, you issue a correction. So it is not uncommon to issue a correction. What is uncommon that you're correct about is that they don't typically apologize. I am simply saying that the apology wasn't, as you suggested, to a mass shooter. I can only imagine that the apology was to the audience because there are many people who are offended by that. And that's why they did it. Is that a political choice? Yes. But that doesn't mean that.
Here's my point, though, Mark. And apology for my language. I couldn't give a fuck if they're offended. I couldn't give a fuck. Why would I care about them being offended about the
truth
shooter being misgendered? The problem's with them. This is the problem with the progressive left. You've all lost your minds. You've forgotten what ordinary people think. This is why the Democrats are now polling the lowest they polled in recorded history, because they say absolute nonsense like that. It's nonsense. Nobody should ever apologise to a mass shooter for misgendering them. I've got a few...
I agree with Pierce. I don't care if you're $1 billion company, right? You shouldn't be appeasing a serial killer or murderer. Like, what world do you progressive lefts live in where you think that protecting the truth about the killer's gender is more important than, other things? Like, who gives a fuck what their gender was? They killed some kids. Who gives a fuck? Their gender's kind of irrelevant, really. They've killed some kids. That's what matters. They were a killer. That's what mattered. Why did they become a killer? How did they become a killer? What was their motive for killing? That's what matters.
Things I'd like to call that person, which don't involve his gender, right? Oh, I misgendered him. I couldn't give a fuck. Sorry.
But you didn't misgender. They weren't misgendered, though. This is the thing. I'm sorry, right? When a trans person changes from man to woman, when you call them a man, you didn't misgender them. You correctly gendered them. It's them who misgender themselves and demand you enable their delusion and their psychopathy. I'm sorry, it's ridiculous. It's like me claiming I'm the smartest man in the world, and you all have to then treat me as the smartest man in the world and call me the smartest man in the world. Otherwise, you have misrepresented me. You've misrepresented me if you don't call me the smartest man in the world. What's the fucking difference? Oh, well, I identify as a land-based dolphin, right? So if I identify as a land-based dolphin, and you don't identify me as Sir Squeaky, right? That'll be my dolphin name. Sir Squeaky. Right? It's more like Peter Griffin, actually. But if you don't call me a dolphin, then you've misspecied me. Do you see how ridiculous this becomes? So if I wear blackface, right, which is illegal, by the way, I would never do that. So if I wore black makeup that made me look like a black man, right, if you don't treat me and consider me as a member of the black community, oh, well, that's fucking racist. That's racist. Do you see how this works? It is insanity enabled, is what it is. It is insanity enabled.
But this really enrages me. It enrages me that we feel the need as a society to issue clarifications and apologies to dead mass shooters. It's preposterous. Anyway, I just want to give the last word to Isabel, because you've got to go, and then I'll just have one last roundup with the others. So, Isabel, where does this leave us? And now that mainstream media's caught up with this story and is now giving it plenty of attention, but all through the prism of, look at these right-wing...
I'm afraid I'm going to have to end the video here, because realistically, right, there is another 10 minutes, but they're still talking about the same thing, the transgender debate, and then the very last segment is the media using this story to bash the MAGA right? And yes, left-wing media will use anything and any story they can to negatively impact the right wing, and the right wing does the same. Anytime a left wing person does something wrong, the right wing papers will all scream about it, and anytime a right wing person does something wrong, the left wing will scream about it. You are all caught up in this childish game of us versus them, rather than working on uniting humanity in a better world for us all, you're all working to divide us all for a worse one. That's what all of you left-wing and right-wing people do every day, is further divide humanity. And you just don't know that all you're doing is hurting yourselves, your families, generations of your family to come, by focusing on the division between us rather than what unites us. See you later. Peace. Fucking CIA psyop bullshit.